Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. The story I'm about to tell doesn't start with a fight, or with someone packing a suitcase, or even with a suspicious text message. No, it started with a sink. Yes, a damn kitchen sink, and ended with a phone that never rang again. 3 weeks ago, I was fixing the garbage disposal, on my knees, screwdriver in hand, mumbling to myself like an old man in a sitcom no one watches. Celine, my wife of 7 years, was behind me on the phone, laughing. Not just a polite chuckle. This was a laugh I hadn't heard in months. Bright, carefree, like she had forgotten I even existed. That laugh stuck with me. It was 3:14 p.m. At 3:17 p.m., I looked over my shoulder and caught her whispering, "You're bad," followed by the softest giggle. My stomach flipped. She saw me watching, gave me a weird half-smile, and said, "It's just Lauren from work." She didn't blush. She didn't fidget. That scared me more than anything. I'm not the sharpest guy. I'm not dramatic. But I'm not stupid. The next morning, she made breakfast. That never happens unless something's broken. She placed my coffee down and said, "I've been thinking. Maybe we should take a short break." Her tone was like she was suggesting we try almond milk. Calm. Casual. Destroying me with decaf in hand. She called it a reset. A healing space. She even used words like self-rediscovery and mental clarity. But you want to know what she didn't say? She didn't say the name Grayson. That was his name. Found it in her iPad's browser history 2 days later. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I didn't even ask questions. I nodded like a dummy while she patted my hand and said, "This is healthy for us." Like she was handing me a granola bar instead of a grenade. She left that Friday morning. I waited exactly 36 minutes after she pulled out of the driveway before I logged into our shared cloud account. Not to snoop, just to confirm what my gut was already screaming. There it was. A folder labeled Wellness Retreat. Inside, screenshots, hotel confirmations, 2 names, hers, his. I didn't finish my toast. I canceled the joint credit cards, moved my savings, blocked her number, filed for divorce by 1:30 p.m. Then, I left the house, my house, and went to stay with my coworker Hank, who lives alone with 5 ferrets and makes chili that tastes like regret. But Hank didn't ask questions. He just handed me a spoon and said, "Want me to change your Netflix password too?" By the time she texted me, on day 1 of her precious little marriage break, her number was already blocked. The divorce papers had been hand-delivered to her mom's front door with a single sticky note that read, "Clarity granted." She still doesn't know how much I found, or what I'm going to do with it. But that comes later. The funny thing is, she expected me to wait. Like I was some kind of emotional bookmark she could return to when the pages of her self-growth story got too complicated. She probably imagined me sitting at home, refreshing my inbox, praying for her to come back, and say it was all just a phase. But that silence she got on day 1, that wasn't pettiness. That was a decision. A loud, cold, irreversible decision. I didn't tell her where I moved. I left the house fully furnished, minus a few things she never even noticed I cared about. My signed baseball, the chair my dad gave me, and Waffles the cat, who somehow understood what was happening better than I did. I changed my mailing address, phone number, even my emergency contact at work. I erased myself from her future like she erased me from her present. And then came the second message. This one didn't just try to call. She emailed. Subject line, "Can we talk?" I didn't open it right away. I let it sit there, unread, like wet laundry in a machine you don't want to deal with. When I finally read it, 2 days later, it was filled with empty lines like, "I didn't expect this to go so fast," and "I thought we agreed this was temporary," and my favorite, "You're acting like I cheated." Like I cheated. No, Celine, I didn't rent a lake house with a man who signs his emails, "Namaste G." I didn't lie about going on a mental health retreat while secretly stocking it with red wine and scented oils and only packing lingerie. I didn't text someone, "Can't wait for your arms again, Yellowheart," while making omelets for the husband I told I needed space from. So no, I'm not acting like anything. I'm just done. But that wasn't even the most disturbing part. The most disturbing part came when my coworker forwarded me a photo. It was Celine, grinning, posted on Grayson's public Instagram, tagged in a story from the cabin. And right there in the background, clear as daylight, was the blanket I bought her for our anniversary. The one she said felt like home. What a joke. I was humiliated. Not just by the fact she moved on so fast, but by how unbothered she looked. Like I was a commercial break in her main feature. And Grayson? He looked like someone who called himself a healer but charged people $200 for crystal workshops. The kind of guy who says energy instead of accountability. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just printed the picture, folded it, and mailed it back to her mom's house, right where the divorce papers landed. I highlighted the date on the photo with a yellow marker. No note, just the date. I heard from her again the next morning. This time, she used a different number. It didn't help. She had no idea how much I had already prepared, how deep I had dug into her web of lies. And what I found out next, it wasn't just Grayson. There was someone before him, and someone after. The world didn't stop spinning after I blocked her number. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was eerie. Like standing in a house where you know someone's been murdered, but no one talks about it. I kept myself busy with useless routines, folding clothes that didn't need folding, reorganizing apps on my phone, pretending I wasn't waiting for something to explode. And then it did. It started with an envelope I didn't expect. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. Inside, a printout of a photo. Her, Celine, in a hot tub, smiling, clinking glasses with Grayson, a hand on her thigh, a necklace I bought her for her birthday, dangling like a joke around her neck. The date printed on the photo? 2 days into our pause. That same weekend she told me she was journaling in nature. At first, I thought she sent it to rub it in. But there was no note, no signature, just the photo. Later, I found out it wasn't her who sent it. It was his wife. Yeah, Grayson had a wife. Her name was Penelope, and she was done being quiet. She found my work email through an old shared document Celine had opened on Grayson's laptop, somehow logged in with her Google account. Rookie move. Penelope wrote, I thought you deserved to know who else she's been rediscovering herself with. Attached were screenshots. So many screenshots. Messages between Grayson and Celine going back nearly a year. Plans. Secrets. Even a wish list of things to try once I was out of the picture. One of them, this still makes me sick, was have him sign over the house during therapy. I felt like my organs were turning inside out. All those late-night walks she took to clear her head. All those podcasts about spiritual intimacy. All the time she accused me of being distant. She was building a whole second life in the margins of mine, and I was the last idiot to figure it out. So I did what any pathetic, heartbroken man with too much time on his hands would do. I went deeper. I combed through everything. Her old phone backups, shared playlists, comments on obscure Instagram posts. And that's when I found out about Leo. He came before Grayson, a photographer she met on a retreat in Sedona. He shot portraits of her at sunrise. She once said, that trip changed everything for me. I thought she meant emotionally. Apparently, she meant physically. And then there was Declan. After Grayson, a co-worker she flirted with through Slack emojis and team check-ins. I found his name saved in her phone under Dana Jim. Subtle. This wasn't just infidelity. It was a pattern, a strategy, a hobby even. And I was the unpaid intern cleaning up after it. I thought about confronting her, about texting her something explosive. But what was the point? She was already gone. The woman I married had disappeared months ago, maybe even years ago, and left behind a beautiful, manipulative ghost wearing her face. So instead, I forwarded everything to my lawyer. And then I did one last thing. I booked a weekend at that same lake house. Alone. Not for closure. Not for revenge. But to see what it felt like to breathe the same air she used to lie in. Let's just say, I wasn't alone there for long. You won't believe who showed up. I don't know what I was expecting when I drove out to that lake house. Maybe some form of closure. Maybe I just wanted to touch the walls that held her lies and breathe the air that carried her laughter. Laughter that, just a week earlier, I thought was mine. I didn't go there to forgive her, and I definitely didn't go there to feel better. I went to confirm what I already knew deep down. There was no going back. The place was beautiful in that hollow, soulless kind of way. Sleek kitchen, massive windows, a view of the water so still it looked fake. I stood barefoot on the deck with a cup of bad motel coffee in my hand, staring out at the fog like it might answer something for me. Instead, it stayed silent, until the crunch of gravel snapped me out of my trance. It was her, Celine. She parked her car like she still belonged there, like this was all just a misunderstanding. She stepped out wearing that same coat I bought her last Christmas, and for a second, I felt my heart try to crawl back to her like a trained dog. But I held my ground. She looked surprised to see me, like she thought I'd be back home sulking or rage texting. No, I was here, standing in the ruins. I thought maybe you'd be here, she said, walking toward me like she wasn't stepping into the aftermath of her own wreckage. I needed to explain. I didn't answer, just opened the door, walked inside, and sat at the table. She followed, like she still knew the layout. Sat across from me like we were about to plan a vacation, not a courtroom battle. She started talking, a full script, about how she was confused, how she never meant for things to go this far, how Grayson had misled her emotionally, whatever that meant. She said she never slept with Leo, that it was just spiritual closeness. She said Declan was a bad decision fueled by wine and loneliness. I didn't interrupt. I let her speak. I watched her spin a web of regret, not apology. She never once said she was sorry, just that she wished things had been different. When she was done, she stared at me like she expected something, tears, a hug, maybe even forgiveness. But I just leaned back, crossed my arms, and asked the one thing that had been burning in my brain for days. Did you ever love me? Or was I just your safety net? She blinked like she didn't expect a question that sharp. Then, for once, she didn't lie. I did love you, but not the way you needed. That sentence broke something in me. Not because it was cruel, but because it was probably the only truth she ever gave me. She stood up after that, walked toward the door, paused like she might say something profound. Instead, she just said, "I hope you find peace." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because peace left the moment she labeled our marriage a pause. I didn't respond, just watched her leave. She never came back. And the next day, I got an email from Penelope, Grayson's wife again. Apparently, Celine wasn't his only side project. The email came just after 2 a.m. I was lying awake again, not because I couldn't sleep, because I was scared of what I might dream about if I did. The subject line just said, "There's more you need to see." It was Penelope again. I braced myself, opened it, and found a Dropbox link. No words, just the link. Like she couldn't even put into words what she found. I clicked it, and I swear, I stopped breathing. It was a folder full of videos. Not the kind anyone should ever have to watch of their spouse. Grayson had a habit, apparently, security cameras. Hidden once. He placed them in his vacation homes for protection, he said. But what he actually used them for was documentation. Control. Ego. I don't even think Celine knew she was being recorded. And I wish I didn't know either. But there she was, laughing, undressing, moving through that lake house like she belonged there. With him. Touching. Whispering. Doing things she swore we'd never try because that's not who I am. She looked like a different person. Like a version of herself she kept buried around me. The worst part? She never looked sad. Never even looked conflicted. She looked alive. Free. While I was trying to hold our marriage together, she was creating an entirely new life in front of someone else's hidden camera. I didn't respond to Penelope's email right away. I just sat there, in the dark, surrounded by the soft glow of betrayal burning from my laptop screen. I didn't cry. My body didn't give me the decency of release. I just felt heavy, like I had swallowed something made of lead. You think you're prepared for the truth until you see it. When I finally wrote back, I asked her why she sent it to me. Her reply? Because you looked like the only one who didn't know. That hit harder than the videos. Apparently, their affair wasn't some secret whirlwind. It was known, whispered about, among coworkers, at mutual events. Even a few of my friends, I would later learn, had suspicions. And nobody told me. Nobody warned me. Because Celine was so sweet and so convincing, and because I always acted like everything was fine, even when I was drowning. That realization crushed me more than the cheating. I started to spiral a little. I looked through old photos with new eyes. Noticed the way she'd lean away from me in group shots. How she'd smile at her phone even when I was talking. How she'd never tag me in anything. All the red flags that used to look like shadows now screamed in high definition. And then, out of nowhere, I got a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. It was his voice. Grayson. Calm. Patronizing. Like he was explaining a weather forecast. "I know you've seen things, Everett. Let's be adults. These kinds of things happen. No need to make a mess. She's hurting too." That's when something in me snapped. He sounded like he was doing me a favor. Like my wife wasn't a human being, just a piece in his little emotional board game. I didn't yell. I didn't call back. I recorded the voicemail, forwarded it straight to my lawyer, and then I started writing down everything. Every date, every file, every receipt. I wasn't going to burn down their lives in a fit of rage. I was going to dismantle them with quiet precision. I spent the next week in total silence. Not the peaceful kind where you finally feel at ease with yourself, but the kind of silence where every second feels like you're standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting to see if the ground gives out. Celine tried reaching out again. New email, new number, different tone, less confident now. Suddenly, she wasn't the woman who wanted space anymore. She was the one wondering why the floor under her feet felt like it was sinking. She didn't know that while she was playing house with a fraud, I was gathering receipts like a man preparing for war. My lawyer and I had been working in the background, lining everything up. Every date, every payment, every lie. And thanks to Penelope's messages, I had more than just text threads. I had a paper trail. But what really shifted things was something Penelope discovered just by accident. While trying to access her shared cloud folder with Grayson, she found something that neither of us expected, a backup of Celine's second phone. Yeah, the one I didn't even know existed. Turns out, she used it for private time, which apparently included talking to not just Grayson or Declan or Leo, but to another guy. One I hadn't even heard of yet. His name was Mark, a yoga instructor she met at a weekend retreat 6 months ago. A retreat she claimed was women only. This guy was bold. He saved her contact name as the goddess. The messages were filled with affirmation garbage and emotional seduction that made me want to scrub my brain with bleach. He knew she was married. He just didn't care. At that point, it stopped being a love story gone wrong. It became something else, like I'd been unknowingly auditioning to be the guy who fills in the gaps while she chased dopamine hits from new admirers. She once told me I was her safe place. Now I realized what she meant. I was the fallback, the couch she could collapse on when her fantasy world disappointed her. But here's where it gets interesting. While I was putting the final touches on my legal plan, I got a message from an unknown Instagram account. No name, just a message. You don't know me, but you should know what she did in Cabo. Cabo. I never even knew she went to Cabo. I replied cautiously. Who are you? He responded with one word. Eric. Eric was another man. Another piece in a puzzle I didn't even know existed. He said he met her while she was on sabbatical 3 years ago, and they had a 2-week fling. He only found out she was married last month, after a mutual friend mentioned my name. He thought she was divorced. She lied to everyone, not just me. When I asked why he messaged me, he said, because I thought you were in on it. But now I realize, you were the one being played. That hit like a truck. Because it meant she built an entire network of half-truths and lies so seamless, even her affair partners thought I was part of the game. I wasn't the victim in a single betrayal. I was the background character in a story she never intended me to understand. And maybe that's what finally killed whatever was left of my love for her. Not the affairs, not the lies, not even the smug voicemail from Grayson, but the fact that I didn't matter enough for her to even fear being caught. It was raining that day, the kind of slow, persistent drizzle that seeps into your bones and makes everything feel heavier. I was in the middle of drafting a final statement for the court. My lawyer said the hearing would be quick, since the evidence was stacked like bricks, but I wasn't expecting any real drama. Celine had gone quiet for a few days, and honestly, I thought maybe she'd finally accepted it was over. That's when the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and froze. Celine, standing there, soaked but composed, holding an umbrella in one hand and a small bag in the other. And right behind her, under the same umbrella, was someone I never imagined seeing face to face. Her mother. Not the sweet, warm kind of mother-in-law who used to send me socks at Christmas. No, this woman had always looked at me like I was a temporary inconvenience in her daughter's upward journey. Now she was here, giving me the same stare, only this time it was mixed with something else. Worry? Pity? Maybe a bit of both. I opened the door, but didn't invite them in. I just stood there. Celine spoke first. Can we talk? Her voice was softer. No arrogance. No sales pitch. She looked smaller than I remembered, like whatever armor she'd worn through this entire disaster had started to crack. I don't think that's a good idea, I said, already stepping aside to close the door. But her mother reached out and blocked it. I know you don't owe us anything, she said. But you should hear what she has to say. That got my attention. Her? The woman who once told Celine to keep her options open, even after we were married. I let them in, not out of kindness, but because I wanted to hear how far they were willing to twist the truth now that the walls were closing in. Celine sat at the edge of the couch like she didn't belong in the space anymore. Her mother stood behind her, like backup. What followed wasn't an apology. It was a pitch. She started talking about mental health, about the pressure of being perfect, about how she never planned for any of this to spiral. She said the pause was supposed to be a time to reflect, and that she got lost. I just stared at her. Not angry, empty, like looking at a stranger who happened to wear a familiar face. Then she did something I didn't expect. She pulled out a thick envelope. It was a check. A big one. She said it was a settlement offer, to walk away quietly. No court. No more drama. Just disappear. Her mother added, "This doesn't have to get ugly." I laughed. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. After all the lies, the manipulation, the betrayal, this was her plan? Throw money at me and pretend none of it happened? I don't want your money, I said, standing up. I want the truth, and I want the record to reflect it. Celine's eyes filled with tears, but I didn't flinch. Then I dropped the final blow. I already gave the videos and messages to the judge. Her mother's expression changed instantly. Panic. Not because she cared about me, but because reputation suddenly became part of the equation. I walked to the door and held it open. Celine stood up slowly. Her voice cracked. "Everett, what happened to the man who used to say love fixes things?" "He died in this house," I said, "while you were finding yourself in someone else's bed." They left in silence. That night, I slept without waking up once. The hearing was quiet, almost anticlimactic. I thought there'd be drama, raised voices, maybe one final plea. But Celine didn't even show up. Her lawyer represented her, and the paperwork was processed in under 20 minutes. The judge barely looked up, just signed the documents, stamped them, and said, "That's finalized." And just like that, 7 years of marriage dissolved with a dry slap of a rubber stamp. I walked out into the parking lot, expecting to feel broken, empty. Instead, I felt lighter. The kind of light that comes after you've finally dropped something you didn't even realize you were dragging. I didn't go back to the condo right away. Instead, I drove for hours. No destination. Just the hum of the engine and Waffles curled up in the passenger seat, like she knew the past was behind us now. I pulled over at a beach just before sunset. Watched the sun hit the horizon like it was being swallowed whole. And for the first time in months, I breathed without flinching. A few days later, Penelope messaged again. No more files. No more drama. Just a simple line. "How are you holding up?" It surprised me how much I needed that. We started talking, really talking. Two people who'd been lied to, cheated on, made to feel like fools. It wasn't romantic. Not at first. Just real. Human. Honest. We met for coffee. Then again. And again. Turns out we laugh at the same dumb sitcoms and hate the same Instagram quotes about healing. It's still new, fragile. But it's not built on illusions. It's two people sitting in the wreckage and deciding to build something better. As for Celine, I don't know where she is now. I stopped tracking. I stopped caring. She became just another chapter in a book I finally stopped rereading. The pain didn't vanish overnight, but it dulled. Replaced by peace, by laughter, by long drives with no destination and no one left to betray me. So yeah, she took a pause. But I pressed stop and started a new story without her. If you've made it this far, thank you. I didn't think I'd ever say this, but I'm glad it happened. Because it woke me up. Because I know who I am now. Because I survived. And if you've ever been betrayed, blindsided, or discarded, know this. Your worth isn't measured by someone's inability to see it. You're watching Reddit Confessions, where every ending hides the start of something better. Now it's your turn. Drop a comment and tell us. What's a moment in history where someone rose from the ashes stronger than before? We'd love to hear your story.